my friends, I'm Rick. Little Missy's around here somewhere. I think she's back up here in the corner. Anyway, cults, man, cults. You don't think a whole lot about them. Don't really know anybody that's in a cult. I can honestly say, until recently, I never knew anybody in a cult. Although, what are cults? There are cults, and then there are cults. There are cults of personality, cults of religion, cults of politics, cults of situation, cults of you know, there's like 9 or 10 official categories for cults. So, what the hell's a cult? People who become so obsessed or so convinced of a thing or place or theme that they become irrational and do irrational things, and often do so while justifying these very irrational and sometimes heinous things. Did they all start out that way? Probably not. Think about Jonestown, for example, Jim Jones. Uh, he was definitely a cult leader in the end. He didn't begin that way. He was always this religious, I don't want to say purist, but he was definitely had this religion-driven mindset on an extreme level. Mostly, he kind of craved being the center of attention. I don't know how many pastors you know, ministers, preachers. Personally, I actually personally know. Now, my grandfather who's passed away, my grandmother who passed away, right? My Uncle Buck, an ordained minister, passed away. My Aunt Ethel, an ordained minister, passed away. Grandma and Grandpa had their own church. They had an actual church. Though for years it was their living room at the house, and then they actually got a church. And my Aunt Ethel had an actual brick and mortar church as well. And then her ex-husband, he was a pastor for a while, and then I got a couple cousins, and so on and so forth. So, and I still have, so my Aunt Ethel's daughter, for example, is deeply involved in a different church who's related to us by a remote family connection, but she married into who's now the pastor at that location, who's took over for the family pastors that used to be there, the Leetown Assembly of God there on the east side of Des Moines. So anyway, I still got a lot. So I'm surrounded by it. So when I talk about religion and I talk about connectivity with religion, I got the baggage and the receipts and the scars to go with it. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I know. And they were all Pentecostals. And if you don't know when people go Christian this and Christian that, well, which Christian, what Christians? Well, they get confused. Well, what do you mean? Well, it's like saying Catholics. Well, all Catholics are Catholic. Yeah, because they be a religious cult. By the definition of a cult, it's still a loose cult, but they are a religious cult. They follow all the criteria of a cult. So do most fanatical organizations. So an operation, I don't know, certain Islamic agencies are religious cults. Majority of them are not. They're political entities and or political cults, right? It's all a matter of a whole lot of gray in how you decide things are going to be categorized, or how the people we all accept as knowing what they this guy's smart and he knows his shit. We believe what he says, right? So cults are messed up, and the Jonestown cult didn't start out that way, and over time they just kept getting more wound up, and eventually it leads to the cult leader realizing his fantasy existence is coming to a horrific end, and he couldn't cope with it, or wasn't willing to take the, be the man. Be a man. You don't be a man. You gotta be a man. Well, yeah. What the fuck, man? What the fuck does that mean? I'm 57 years old and I still don't fucking know what the hell some people mean when they say, you gotta be a man. Oh, fuck you. I've been a man my whole goddamn life. What does that mean to you? Because it sure isn't equal to everybody. So why don't you be a man and man up and accept your punishment, You fucking jackwad. No, you wanted to kill all your followers so that they would, they wouldn't suffer. That's insanity. This is a cult gone insane. That's an extreme case. And a lot of cults end up in extreme situations. And hello, America, you need to be aware of this. You need to pull them blinders back just a bit more and be so situationally aware of just how big of a percentage of our fellow countrymen have gone off the deep end and are not going to handle any kind of major loss well. Trump goes to prison won't be the least of the problems. If Trump does not win the White House, just ask yourself, right? Just ask yourself, because we come to this. No, not this guy. This is part of that ask call. This guy here. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Nobody knew who this guy was until he decided to chop the head off of his dad and wave it on YouTube. Apparently, now I ain't seen that video, and I don't want to. I do not want to see that image. But I know that enough people did, or this crap would not. Is this all bullshit and fake, or not? I don't know. I mean, we hear a lifetime of people over the last year, couple of years, everything's fake, the media's fake, the news is fake, fake news, fake this, fake that. So maybe this is fake bullshit made up by the old Uber left to make the Uber right, whatever. It's not the sort of thing the left might do, though. It's not normal for the left type people to do this sort of shit. I've never heard of a. It's like alcoholics and potheads. I have never heard of a pothead going on in a 100-mile-an-hour screaming rant down the middle of a road at nighttime, firing a gun out the window. Never going to happen. Shit-faced, coked up motherfucker. I've been in one of those. I sat in the passenger seat when a cousin of mine went on one of those rampages, and thank God we're still here. Well, he's dead, but from other situations. But that's, oh shit, kind of thing. So this guy must have had an extreme hate on for his dad to start with, which I can relate to. I never got along with my father. I didn't really understand him until many years later. And then by the time I truly understood him for the man that he was, it was too late. And I wasn't able to really, I don't know. You can't make up for a lot of years of bullshit. And him and I did not have a good relationship when I grew up. It was pretty horrific in my mind. It was pretty abusive. By today's standards, he would have been in prison for it. And probably rightly so. So I understand both sides of the child abuse thing and abuse in general. And I know that the scars are for life and sometimes generational. They carry over. We aren't the same people we might have been or could have been than the people that we raised and produced, or then influenced by what influenced us. That's part of the problem with the modern social media today. It's got too much control and too much. It influences too many people, and it doesn't matter what age. Right now, they're in Washington going off at the head yahoos of the various media companies, going the internet companies, because of all the shit that's going on with the kids, and they're probably on the track there. I've run into this all the time. How often do you get ads for crap that you look at it and you know it's bullshit? You know that ad has got to be 99% of it's got to be pure bullshit. I'm poor, so I get bombarded daily by these ads telling me, act now and you can get $9,000 from the federal government. But you have to act within the next 20 days or the next 3 days or the next 15 minutes. That's not a real thing, man. It's not a real thing. Oh, you can get this grocery card. You can buy groceries every month. They'll put $900 on it. No, they want you to sell out your Medicare for something called Medicare Advantage, which is not Medicare. That is a bullshit scam by the health industry, the insurance industry, to sucker these people into signing up for their version of Medicare, privatized Medicare, which at that point, what did you just give up? Because if you need something comes down the road and you have a health issue when you're older, Medicare will take care of it, and they don't question it. They just do it. Private insurance, got a whole battery of people to decide whether or not that you should have that surgery, and the doctor be damned. That's cold facts too, friends. So I see those ads, it just cheeses the shit out of me. Pisses me off. So what do we know if it's real or not? This guy did what they're saying he did? Oh, fuck, really? So, how far down the rabbit hole does a political activist get? Let alone a normal person. Because I don't know that this guy was some radical, was he? Was he some big, huge radical nut job, fascist, whatever? And he went on a tangent. His daddy was retired from the federal government, so he killed him. Waved his head around on TV, on YouTube. He had to know that anything like that would not. What he thought, Trump's going to give him a pardon and he'll be okay, or they'll just forgive him because he's right and somehow everybody else is wrong. Seriously, dude, you killed your dad, and you're going to spend the rest of your fucking life in prison if you don't kill you first. Or you don't die in prison anyway. I mean, you're likely to take your own life because, suicide happens a lot more in prison than they talk about. And it happens a lot more than they talk about. I'm just pointing out real facts, too. I know that for a fact. So, this guy's part of a cult. He's influenced by all the hate and rhetoric that the Trump MAGA campaign is spewing. And I say spewing, I mean fire hosing. They're literally, everybody and anything, hoping something gets stuck to the wall so they can survive. Okay, look, I also have to, who, what, where, and why ask. I have to ask something. Am I the only one that looks at the last handful of Republican presidents and think that there hasn't been an actual honest Republican victory for president since Reagan? I can't speak about the ones prior to that because I wasn't there. I wasn't present. I wasn't alive and listening to all the bullshit that was going on. But Bush Jr. and the Hanging Chads beat out Al Gore on the technicality and got the electoral vote, even though he haven't had a Democrat or a Republican win the popular vote, the actual population's vote of approval since Reagan. So that's true. And who was before Junior? His daddy? Was it his daddy? Because I'm pretty sure Clinton was a Democrat. Obama was a Democrat. Who am I missing? Who am I missing? Am I missing somebody? There's got to be somebody I'm missing. Because Bush Sr. got in on technicality too. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I think it was on the opposite side. The candidates running up against him they were piss poorly picked, and it's implied that was on purpose. Although why the Democrats would want a Republican as president, I don't know. But politics are weird. Internal politics are even worse. But the fact is, for many people, they've crossed borders. When people start saying, Trump is the orange Jesus, Trump is a deity. Trump is, I don't know, God ordained. God sent Trump to save the world. Did he? Did he? Hey guys. Hi, this is just dumbass redneck Rick here in bumfuck Iowa. I gotta ask you, America. I have to ask. Right? Did God send Trump? Because God sent hell and fire and brimstone to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. God sent a flood of biblical proportions. It says it right there in the Bible. Right there, Speaker Johnson. Bible's the gospel. The Bible speaks the truth. Because the men who wrote the Bible were saints. And they themselves were absolutely positive that Jesus said this and God did that. The Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament that's translated from the Hebrew Bible, that's translated from a bunch of old scrolls and a lot of collective memory shit, is 100% accurate because God Almighty Himself wrote it with His own hand. Now, the only evidence any hyperbole at all that God wrote anything in existence is when God gave the literal Ten Commandments in stone to Moses. All right. So there was Moses. No, it wasn't Moses. Abraham. Anyway, the Ten Commandments that God created. Right. So now Jesus, on the other hand, was a living, breathing, walking human being that was propagated by God. Right. So God went down and got on the nasty with, uh, Mary, and which is my mother's name, and Jesus come along, or there was some funky artificial insemination going on in the middle of the night, or it was a mystical thing that occurred, just not unlike the midichlorians in generating enough force to create a baby that we named Anakin Skywalker, who went on to save the universe after destroying it. Or at least his offspring tried to save it anyway. So, Trump. God sent Trump to save the world. You sure? Are you utterly convincing yourself that if God sent this man to do his bidding, that his bidding is what you think it is? Because the Old Testament tells you some pretty rough choices. My grandfather was very adamant. God is an angry God. God is the all-loving God, but he's extremely angry. And one of the things God gets extremely angry over is posers. Matter of fact, his disciples, Jesus' disciples, the Old Testament hints at this stuff. And I think one verse outright, flat out says it: do not take false idols. Well, right about the same time, the Ten Commandments, the followers of David were off on a tangent, had fallen into bad habits and bad company, and basically became very extremely hedonistic and did everything that good little human beings should not do. And God chastised them in bad ways, especially after they, accumulate. Everything ends with this big golden bowl that they start worshiping. Okay. Now, it's ironic that this is the God who created the cosmos, and he does this for this branch of humanity, but, in a different branch of humanity, not too far distant in time, the literal bull was their God, or the symbol of their God. And, of course, that gets me off into a conversation of theology, which is not really suited for this channel or this point, but it's always been my deep-seated belief that God is God. Your idea of religious be damned. God don't fucking care what you fucking think about fucking him. He don't. And you want to use his name in vain, he ain't going to care either. Because it's too petty for him to worry about. He is better than that. He is a real man. He's what men should be. Whatever the hell that's supposed to be. Please, somebody fucking tell me what the hell that's supposed to mean. Be a man. Be a man. Really? I know a lot of women that are more manly and more man than a lot of men I know. And we all fail in our, we all are frail and all are fragile and all are susceptible to having bad days and bad moments and bad choices and bad decisions and sometimes just bad luck and bad circumstances. And sometimes all you can do is sit there and weep and blame God or thank God it ain't worse. There's the pessimist in me. I always thank God it's not worse than what it turned into, because it could always be worse. It can always get worse. Because God can make it freaking get worse. And has. It says it right there in the Bible there. Speaker Johnson will back me up on that. Although his interpretation of those words, which brings us back full circle to the thing when I sit there and say, well, I'm a Christian. Really? Which church do you belong to? The Christian church. Sure. You ain't seen nothing till you've been into a Pentecostal church in full swing. You get a Pentecostal church on full swing, it's nut hour. It's crazy. I've been in the middle of it many, many times. The only ones more crazier than Pentecostals are Southern Baptists. And you know what? The only difference between Southern Baptists and Pentecostals is South. I'm just being honest here. It's they're they're almost in the same apple cart. But they are extremely jubilant people, extremely happy, and positivity just flows and makes you sick. You drown in it. But yeah, but they're not all of them. The Methodists are completely a bunch of dour, straight-faced yahoos. I've been to Methodist churches before too. Methodist Church, in my opinion, is a Christianized, an American Christian church version of Catholic Church. Right now, I've been in one or two Catholic masses too, and they're pretty serious crap of people. That's why I said I've been around Catholics. I've been in some of their situations, and they qualify as a cult. Yeah, they're pretty strict. You can be banned, and you can be banished, and you can be punished, and you have to have permission for a lot of different things. You have to have your local priests gotta give your it's okay for your marriage and for your this and for that. And I mean, because in the eyes of the Pope, that's the problem. We go back to that about certain elements of the Christian faith where we talk about God does not tolerate idols. God does not tolerate, and we do not tolerate false prophets either, which unfortunately all faiths are full of, because the church as an entity is profitable. And there's a whole lot of people that make good livings being preachers and pastors, and some of them are very fine people, and others they're just in it for the great fine lifestyle. Was it just recently some megachurch yahoo got his congregation to buy him $100 million plane because God said he needed a plane? Really? God told him he needed a plane. Hey, dude, you sure you want to fly in that plane? God wants you to have a plane, my friend. Speaker Johnson will agree that you should have that plane. Yeah, we'll see how it works out for him, right? Wouldn't that be something? Just saying, man. We go down and go down into this cult and mega crap, or these cult shit, and it goes worse and worse and worse. So, back in the 70s, we got the Mansons. The Mansons are another well-known cult, and what happens is a cult of destruction. A cult of personality that starts out as this person. A lot of cults, and I googled it earlier before this morning, and the government estimates about 10,000 cults are active in the United States. Majority of which we never hear of. These cults can go on, and you could be working with people and living with people that are in cults and not know it. I mean, there are some people that will argue that a lot of secret societies and semi-secret societies are forms of cults too, but I don't think so. I think there's a distinct difference between like the Freemasons, the Skull and Crossbones, and a lot of these mainstream cults that very few people know about. And unfortunately, most of the ones we do know about, either because they've come to a horrific end where there was some kind of suicide pact that gets enacted, like Jamestown and the Heaven's Gate cult that basically thought some UFO was coming to save them and they had to kill themselves so their spirits could reach it. See, here's where I get into the problem. This is where I get into the problem. Yeah, and I got Speaker Johnson here up here too, because that form of Christianity that he's promoting is a cult too, and it's a dangerous cult, real dangerous cult. As a matter of fact, it had its grip on history for a long time, and it's elements of it, fellas like him, they ache to have that theocracy they think we need, they think we need to have, because this is in his own words, this is your modern Moses. This is my modern Moses. He is going to save us and lead us to the promised America, whether we want to or not. Going back to what I said earlier about accidents and planes, presidents. Remember, this guy's only three away from the White House. It would be horrible. There's a reason why the president and the vice president do not travel on the same plane. They do not travel in the same limousine. Ideally, they don't even travel in the same convoy. Ideally, they don't even let them sit in the same damn building for any length of time. And so we have this thing called continuity of government. So if they, by some dumb luck, the vice president and the president are in the same location and an accident happens, you know, because accidents happen all the time, man. You slip and fall in the bathtub and hit your head, you know. You don't be, you know, accidentally going down a flight of stairs and carrying a scissors with you and trip. It's terrible, terrible how things can happen. Terrible accidents can happen. Then you have these really, really, really adept secret agencies within well-known alphabet agencies that are quite capable of doing those very things and making it look like an accident. And you would never know. And in part, we're all cults. We all belong to this cult of Americanism. You don't think so? Well, let me rephrase that. A lot of you, like myself, born and raised in the United States, never been out of the United States. Our only interactions with other cultures is when the handful of refugees or migrants show up in our neighborhood. And then we tend to isolate ourselves from it. You know, I live in a neighborhood full of fine Mexican families. There's some really nice people, and I've talked to a couple of them, but I can't. We've not connected with them. We don't, you know, they're not. We don't go to each other's houses that, you know, except outside the door kind of thing. You know, being neighborly neighbors, because I was raised in a small town and with that kind of value and mindset, and I carried it with me to this community we have here. That said, my job takes me into many different restaurants and businesses that are owned by people who are, you know, born somewhere else and are happy as cheese, clam dip to be here. They love America. They love America. How hard or different or sad was the place they came from? That they find their love and their life here. And isn't that a good thing? Isn't that what we want? You know, I've already did videos on the open border crap, and no, we don't need this. You know, we don't need to just have an open door policy and everybody can just waltz in when they want, and we don't have that. And the lying sacks of shit on the MAGA side that keep trying to feed you that line of bullshit are wrong. Just because our Constitution says they have the right to say that stuff doesn't make it right. Two rights do not make a wrong. That's something that's been taught to me too as a kid, since a kid. You know, you fuck up, own up to it. It's better to just face the music and then get it over with and deal with the consequences than to engineer worse consequences. This is something that happens all the time, and a lot of these cults end this way. The reason the whole topic and I talk about is because there's some serious real danger here. We are in uncharted territory as a country, at least not charted since 1930 or the 1850s. You got to go back to the decade prior to the Civil War to see some similarities. The differences, though, are pretty glaring too. We are a much wider, diverse culture today than we were in that era, and we are huge in comparison. The entire population of Civil War, pre-Civil War America could sit into, I think, one of our smaller states today. I think it was in the millions. The entire population of the country was at, what, 20 million, maybe? Maybe? I didn't do my research on that, but I'm saying it was pretty low compared to the almost 300 million or 300 plus that we got now. I mean, hello? A civil war on the scale of the population today would be devastating. This country would not recover as a country, ever. And you think that by the states succeeding, that's going to somehow make things better? Well, it's just going to make two halves even worse off. So, where's this called a personality that Trump has that's kind of grown? I'm loath to say that Trump created it because he's so quick to take, you know, claims everything that's his idea, and it's, you know, he wants the awards for the one to come up with it. But at the same time, it's definitely called personality, and people have been drawn into it like unlike anything I've seen since a lot of organized religion back in the late 70s, when the evangelistic moral majority stuff started to ramp up. I saw a whole lot of people, you know, in and around my grandfather's church and my aunt's churches change, and not necessarily for the better. By the 90s, they were a lot of different people even people I knew had completely changed their minds on a lot of things that I struggled with to understand. I still struggle with today, but I understand that a lot of the kernels of our problems today are the fruit of that era. And there was a lot of unresolved problems in the late 70s coming out of the 60s that were still festering in this country. You know, like I said in previous videos, what a different the country would be had we actually lived up to our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, what our founding fathers and our forebears had envisioned in general for the country. And put aside all the other bullshit for what it is, bullshit. But if all men were created equal, color be damned. If you're born in America, you are an American. If you're a Native American, you're still born in America, you are an American. If you're a African American, you were born here and your parents were slaves, you're still American. You should have been freed then. At the end of that, then it officially declared the United States the Battle of Britain, that we'd won the battle for and our independence. The independence is claimed. As soon as the Constitution was ratified, every man and woman should have been free, equal under the eyes of God and America. We should all be equal Americans. What a difference the world would have been if America had been unified from day one. Of course, we know woulda, coulda, shouldas won't feed the bulldog. We can't go back. We can't change it. We can't fix things. But how different would the world have been? Well, the Civil War, as we know it, would never have occurred. We would never have had a Civil War. Now, the Civil War was a horrific thing. I think it was like 800,000 people died in the Civil War. It was devastating for the entire South and the portions of the North for decades. It took many decades, almost damn near. It wasn't until the 30s or 40s or actually maybe the 50s that certain parts of the South actually really recovered. And there are entire sections of the country that never did. There are some pretty dearth areas of resources where the people there are so poor. They're pretty much remote, but they're still. West Virginia is considered one of the poorest states in the country when it comes to a lot of things, and part of it's because of geography, and part of it's because of the effects of Civil War and the effects of the aftermath of the Civil War. And that's a lot of stuff we talk about, but we try to educate our kids about, but the woke bullshit. The unnecessary political drama, the real agendas to mess with your head, to make you question everything, and then to the point where you just makes your life simpler if you just nod your head and agree with the guy over there who seems to think he knows what's going on. Now, are you a follower or are you a leader? This has been my problem since I was a kid. I'm neither one. I do not want to be the guy out front. I don't want to make the hard choices because I understand the ramifications. I understand just how hard that is and how bad they can be. And if you make the wrong choice, you got to live with it. And I watch people who love that sort of thing. They live to be the leader, and I think some of them are suited for it. Some of them who are suited for it have no business being allowed to be the leader. Right? At the same time, I've always been adverse to being the follower. I'm not a lemming, and I never have been. And I was that way when I was a kid, too. I had some family and friends that were more personable people than myself, and they were much more loved and admired and liked by our peers and so on and so forth than me. I was a bit of a loudmouth then and rambunctious and a bit of a dour person, even in my childhood. And that's in part because of a lot of things that happened in my childhood. They were good and bad, and both, and all, and nothing, and never your fucking business. Just to say, we all have our baggage, and some things we deal with it in silence, and some of us never cope with it and never figure a way to make it okay. And some things you can't ever make okay. Sometimes we make poor decisions that we pay for it forever, and it ain't because society's making us. It's because it is. Yeah, so these cults, this group of personality, if Trump does not win the presidency, who the fuck knows how these people are going to handle it. I'm praying, I honestly pray every day that wisdom is given, that God opens these people's minds and gives them some wisdom. Because because his chosen leadership right now in the country are lying to their rank and file. They are slavishly, and there's a certain group that are not, and there's certain other elements that are starting to wake up, become woke. They're waking up. They're becoming woke. So they're gonna pass on this shit. Wait and see what happens. But what if happens? Doesn't happen the way they think it should. Would we see a civil war? Would these actual people, this guy here, this guy right up here, willing to cut the head off of his father, and we've been around on YouTube. I'm willing to do a lot of things, but I'm not. I don't know. I don't even begin to know where to do something like that. I don't even want to contemplate something like that. I get upset when I contemplate putting my fist through somebody's face, and that happens. And every now and then I get people that get belligerent with me, and I warn them, you touch me and I'm killing you. I'll be my ever-loving best to beat the crap out of you with whatever motherfucking thing I got present here. Because I've learned a couple things in my life too. The longer a fight goes, the more likely you're going to lose. The best offense is an extremely offensive one. The more offensive it is, the better it is, because guess what? It's likely to stop shit faster. I'm talking an offense here, not something that you go off on. There's a fine line between terrorist acts and patriotism. It's all a matter of whose side of the fence you're standing on. All right? I'm just pointing out that's the truth and the facts of the world. And we're not in a good spot, and there's a lot of not so good outcomes on the horizon. So yeah, the conversation needs to happen. We need to have these conversations. We need to talk to people. We need to talk to people about the what if. I ask that all the time, and I get a lot of people don't talk to me because I'm too liberal. I'm woke. Fuck you. Fuck them. No. I'm just not blind. I'm not stupid. I'm dumb. I'm ignorant. As ignorant. But I do my damnedest to be less ignorant. I try to educate myself. I try to stay up with things. I try to approach things from a wider sense. What, why, and how. Before just knee-jerking a reaction to something. That's kind of, maybe that's wisdom. Maybe that's something else. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. I don't know. I'm a state certified weirdo and I can prove it, but I'm not gonna. Because it's none of your fucking business. Right? Anyway. Where do we go from here? And if we can't talk about it, we can't converse with people. You can't have everything all the time your way. That's something Trump has yet to really, he's just now starting to learn that you can't buy your way through the world. You can't buy everything. You can't demand everything, expect to get it. And not everybody dances to your tune. So if you're the lemming, if you're the follower who blindly follows your leader, and your leader turns out to be a bully, and you do some things because your leader tells you to, or because you think by doing them you'll make yourself look more something in the leader's eye, what does that make you? What does that make you? American military has always had a quandary. There's always this dark gremlin lurking in the corner. And every service person that's ever served, and I suspect this goes true with just about every military in existence, but specifically in America, because as an American service person, you are sworn to uphold the Constitution. You are not sworn to uphold your state constitution. You are not sworn to uphold your state, or your state's governor, or the President of the United States, or any ass clown that believes that is sitting in Congress, be it the House or the Senate. You swear this oath to defend the Constitution and what the Constitution represents. This can be a terrible double entendre quandary. This is that wicked gremlin that hides in the corner that's there because if you get the wrong people in power, and it doesn't matter if it's your lieutenant or your sergeant or the president, and they ask you to do something, they order you to do something unethical that goes against everything America stands for and the American Constitution says we stand for. What do? A good little soldier, a good warrior will just do what they're told and live with the result. And there's a lot of militaries that do that, and there's too many people in our militaries that are willing to do that too. They're warriors, and they're warriors through and through. There's the downside of having a volunteer military. You know, it's kind of a slippery slope. You get a lot of people who really want to be in the service. Now, if you had a draft and the draft said you had to be in the service, you would get a whole lot of people who do not want to be in the service, who would help leaven things out a little bit. You know, to damp down on the over enthusiasm and gung ho attitude that the other side might show. If you get too much of that over enthusiastic gung ho, we have the serious danger for things becoming much worse than they should have been, or being blown out of proportion. And you see this with cult stuff too. This is when you hear about these cults whacking themselves, or these cults of destruction where they go off. What was it called over in Japan? That was going was bombing or no, was that a terrorist group? That might have been a terrorist group. That was gassing their transit system. You know, this is years and years and years ago. You know, so when I hear individuals, it's no different than that feller that broke into the Pelosi's, you know, former Speaker Pelosi or Representative Pelosi's house and beat her husband half to death with a hammer. That man was a fanatic, spurred on by his uber beliefs in the leader. And what did it get him at the end of the day? A little bit of fame, a lot of infamy, the rest of his life in prison. For what? Because you beat up one old man? You know, 50% of us real men in America, if you'd have pulled that shit on us, we'd have killed you. You come running in my house with a hammer, you don't catch me off guard, it's on like Donkey Kong, motherfucker. And every motherfucking thing in the house is fair game, including all 13 damn cats. And I know which cat to throw at your ass first, because that cat will tear your face off. She won't like you at all, because she don't like anybody except me for some damn reason I don't understand. Anyway, because I'm a good person. All the cats love me. Wife gets cheesed off because this one here, she comes up to me, love jumps on me, wants rubbing and scratching, and she gets hissy and oofy with her even though she feeds her. You tell me, well, is what it is. So, my friends and fellow Americans, these conversations need to happen. We need to have more of them. We need to get really started on it now, because if we are to be a one nation under God, or that's what we're supposed to be, one nation under God, God defined by the fact that everybody, God is the same individual. I dare you to say otherwise. Prove to me I'm wrong. It's that interfaith bullshit of politics and faith that's fucked up so much of the world for so damn long. The same God the Jews worship, the Gentiles worship. The same God that Christian nationals claim to worship, the Jewish Orthodox worships, and the Muslims worship, and the Catholics worship. You have to get outside of the Christianity realm to get into the even more obscure ones by our standards. You go over to Asia, and there's all kinds of religions, and they're not all based on some omnipotent force or power. You know, I mean, Taoism. Look, what's Taoism? That's a religion. I'm just saying there's hundreds and hundreds of these things, and right here in the heart of Midwest America, in the heart of Iowa, in the city of Des Moines, the capital of this beautiful state, there are about 50 different religions. I know of at least 12 that, because I go by their places all the time, and a couple of them I service. They have grease traps. They have to be serviced. They got a kitchen. And I didn't even know they were freaking religions at first. I didn't even know what the hell this place was. I thought it was some yoga place where you go in and do exercises and crap. And it turns out it's some East Indian religion. It's their church or their worship hall or meeting, whatever it is they call it. And the irony of ironies, as a kid, that same building was a Christian church for a long time. So it's interesting that the building still continues on as a place of worship for a new faith. But the fact is, do you think God would be offended the fact that this East Indian religion that does not acknowledge Him as God is utilizing the very building that God's worshipers built for God and worshipped in His presence for 50 years? There's some irony there, isn't it? Yeah, right? Then just up the block from me, there's an old church up here. It's beautifully restored. And there is some, I want to say, Bosnian Christian looking religion that uses that place. And it's East European for damn sure, and I want to say it's in Croatia or Bosnian, but I don't know the language. But the wording on their sign is damn close, so it's in that regional area, and they have most of their services on Saturdays instead of Sundays. I mean, they do stuff on Sundays too, but it's usually more like a family get together kind of. Community get-together thing. They do soccer during the summer. They'll have soccer games and stuff in the main yard, and they'll have big potlucks and other stuff like that. But their main services, it seems like, are on Saturday mornings, which is odd, unless that's your religion. I have yet another customer. Winter before last, she was working at her gas station. She's not normally there, but she was working, the owner, and it was Christmas, the week of Christmas, and I says, I did her transaction, and I wished her happy holiday. I said, "You have a Merry Christmas," and she's, we don't celebrate Christmas. We're not Christian. We don't believe in your God." I was like, "Holy shit, really?" Well, that was very rude. Very rude of you to say that. I'm sorry that by my saying a very basic greeting or salutations in America, Merry Christmas, you took that to be some religious whatever. Which, had I been the boss and I had been a little bit more younger, I'd have told her where to fucking go. And it wasn't all that many years ago I told her where to go anyway. Boss be damned. How the fuck do you get off saying that? You're in America, bitch. Being an American, bitch. But guess what, bitch? You're an American. You got a right to your religion. Except this guy here and a whole lot of guys like him don't think that way. So Christianity, once again, our Christian faith has been intermingled with our politics even since the conception of the country, because in God we trust, and we swear on the Bible, and we do a whole lot of stuff that rubs up against that, where we're the separation of state and church. We should not be taking oaths on the Bible if we're truly separating things. We should not be having "In God We Trust" printed on our money if we're not rubbing up against that boundary. That's a cultural thing and a societal thing, and something that we may never ever be able to overcome or fix or alter or advance. I don't know. My question, though, is how do we get through this year and not self-destruct, our country fall apart, or worse, eat itself? Because a lot of what we're seeing right now in the, quote, modern Republican Party, which is the truth, the MAGA Party, because most of the old school Republicans are bailing out. Did you not look at the roll call of Republicans who claimed about 6 months ago or so said that they weren't going to run for re-election? There's a whole lot of Republicans, old school Republicans, who are done. They've seen the writing on the wall, and they're done. They're not going to watch. They're not going to participate in what's left or what's coming next, and so they're exiting. and they're going to be likely be replaced with more MAGA types, and this will make things even more extreme on the right side of the room, and that means a lot of problems for them, for us, for the country, and unresolved problems. So even when Trump's dead and gone, the odds are really good to a lot of us. I comfortably believe I will live long enough to outlive his ass. So whether he's president or in prison, it ain't gonna make a difference. At the end of the day, we all meet our maker, whatever that may or may not be, and however you may not embrace or believe in it, which by our Constitution is your God-given right to not love or like or even believe in God. Because you know what? God forgives you. God still loves you. And when the time comes for you to realize your mistake, you're going to burn in hell. Because that's what Scott Johnson, a whole lot of guys, or Mike Johnson, a whole lot of guys like him believe. Ain't what the Bible says, my friends. It ain't what the Bible says. At least it ain't in anything I've read in the Bible. We'll go back to that. All the 20 or 30 different types of churches in the Christian church, all of them are fundamentally different in some way, otherwise they wouldn't be that way. And even the quote Christian church is a much smaller denomination than what people think. They just lump a whole lot of others into that category because for convenience. It's like saying that all Muslims follow the exact same thing when they don't. You have your different groups and your different philosophies on interpreting, the Quran, just like Christianity has interpreting the Bible. And then within the groups, we have radically different people whose takes don't jive with the others. But they're just similar enough or convenient enough for monetary and commercial reasons to be in the same group of people, the same flock. Anyway, I've been rambling on about this for way too goddamn long. This is the 3rd of November, I believe, of this year. It's kind of a gloomy, shitty day out there. I just came off of, like I said, I probably already told you, a 55-hour week last week. I pulled almost 16 hours Thursday. I was pushing to get jobs caught up from the snowstorms a couple weeks back. And I hit overtime at noon on Thursday, and I said, yeah, this is when we hit the wall. So I pulled a crab fisherman and just ground through, and I did a lot of long distance driving. So I probably drove about 700-800 miles on Thursday, because a lot of these places I went were way out, and they needed to get done. So I got them done, and then Friday morning I had 3 little jobs, about 4 hours, and so that was 14 and a half hours of overtime. And so I had 40 hours in by noon on Thursday, and I had started working Sunday night actually, because I went up and did a job all night Sunday night, and I was off most of Sunday sleeping or trying to, and then it just takes its toll. Like right now, I slept all night. I slept real good. I don't remember sleeping. I don't know. I usually get up every 3 or 4 hours to go to the bathroom, and this one I slept straight through to about 4 in the morning, and then I couldn't go back to sleep. So I slept real good, and I'm still just tired. And I did some videos, I think last week, man. I was yawning through half of them. I previewed, because I post these videos, and then I go and I do listen to them when I'm out on these long ass drives and stuff, just so I can see if what am I missing? How bad did I screw shit up? Sometimes I forget my train of thought, and sometimes I can recover it, and I'm stalling and hiffing and hoffing, and I'm sure that's noticeable. And other times, I'm on a tirade and I go off into a tangent, and I'm thinking, where the hell did I go with that, and why, or just did I, and I don't have the editorial. I don't have time for editing shit and mastering all this stuff. If I had, I don't know, if I had 30 or 40,000, if I had 50,000 subscribers, and I was pulling down enough money to hire somebody part-time to do that crap, we'd be in a different line of work then, wouldn't we? I sure the hell wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, and I would spend more time focused on what I'm doing here, so I would rant less and be more informed. But I try. Like I said, I make notes. I make lots and lots of notes. I just don't always read verbatim what the hell I got here. Right? And that takes time. But fortunately for me, once again, a lot of my jobs involve me sitting somewhere while the truck's pumping crap out of a hole in the ground. It might take a half hour, it might take an hour and a half, it might take 3 fucking hours, depending on how nasty it is. And those are horrible days when that happens because you just sit there. That's all you can do to keep the balls. 4 in the morning, you're going, oh, yeah, stop. I want you to feel so I can go the fuck home. You ever have days like that? My whole life's like that sometimes. Anyway, you know the drill. It just irritates me to no end.